My name is Breannah Tulk. I'm the Community Programs Director here at the Friendship Center. I manage all of our social enterprises and our social services, with the exception of our youth and family services. I was involved with our cultural diversity training from inception, really, and so within the last 2 years or so, were able to make it sustainable. So now we're able to have a coordinator who coordinates all those efforts. The idea behind the training program came from the interest that was really coming forward to us from the community. People were looking for an opportunity to learn more and understand better the Indigenous communities in the province. And that's generally how we create social enterprise here at the center. When the community is coming to you with opportunity, then we try to respond to that with a community-driven program. So the Indigenous staff, elders, community members came together in different ways to put that information together in a neat and tidy package that really we were able to promote and market to the greater community. It is a living training, we like to say. It is something that, depending on who we have sitting in on a certain day, they may point something out, especially if it is a fact to do with a particular community that we don't have the opportunity to engage with very often. We're always willing to change. And Hadi, who's the program facilitator, she really draws from the people who are in the audience, because the makeup, I guess, of our province has changed so dramatically over the last number of years that there's always a really interesting perspective in the room. Oftentimes, everyone now seems to have some level of understanding, whether or not that's misinformed. But everyone has some sort of experience now, which it wasn't that way really a couple of years ago even. So it's really a community-driven project. The business community has responded really well to the opportunity to do the training, and they've been making requests in the last few years of ways that they'd like to see the training marketed differently or packaged in a different way so that it's more appropriate for their setting. So we see a lot of business potential in what that program is currently, and so we'll look forward to adjusting that over the last number of years, because in the last 2 years especially, we focus more on organizations who are a little bit more forward-thinking and have more of that vision for an inclusive community. So now we want to start looking at maybe community partners who don't necessarily think in that way, and we want to present that to them as, here is how having this knowledge can be more beneficial for your business or for your organization. So that's where we see it going in the future. But right now, it's very busy. We'd love to have a second staff person to support the one facilitator that we do have. Obviously, everyone within the organization has the capacity to deliver the training, and that's something that Hadi has been working on as a facilitator's guide, so that it is something that anyone within the organization can kind of pick up and deliver. So it's evolved dramatically over the last number of years, and we look forward to seeing it grow in the future as well. I think it's great because it is specific to Newfoundland and Labrador, especially when we look at provincial and national organizations who have chapters here or whose head office are located here in the city. A lot of the training that they had received prior to ours was very nationally focused, so it really didn't give them a good perspective of what the Indigenous communities look like here in Newfoundland and Labrador. So I like that it's very specific in that way, and I like that the information is very accessible, regardless of a person's literacy level or education level. They're able to take in the training and understand it. We use a lot of different media platforms throughout the training that I think are beneficial to all sorts of learners, which is really good. And I think it's important that it's delivered by an Indigenous person. That's the premise of everything that we do here at the Friendship Center. And the community, I think, are able to understand it better when it's delivered by an Indigenous person as well. We launched the training around the same time as the TRC, so it was a time when a lot of people didn't really, non-Indigenous people didn't know how to participate in reconciliation, and one of our strategic goals as an organization is to better provide opportunities for non-Indigenous people to participate meaningfully in that process. So designing an education tool for us was really the first step in saying you need to have some basis of understanding before you can really participate in our programs and services in a meaningful way. So in a way, in order to prevent ignorance in those types of circles and to make sure that we can maintain safe spaces for the community that we're here to serve, it was really important for us to have that education opportunity for, the general public. It depends on the way that we market different things. So like our public sessions, for example, would be marketed to the non-Indigenous community for sure. But we also have found over the course of delivering the training that there are plenty of Indigenous people who know a lot about their own communities but not a lot about the other communities. Yet when they come to work for an organization like ours, there's a certain level of expectation that they do have that understanding. So we have had a lot more Indigenous people participate as well for that reason. And we do market and promote oftentimes our ability to tailor a presentation to a specific group. So if we're working with justice, then we can use more justice-specific examples when we're going through some of the different components of the training, or education. So really highlighting the fact that this is a grassroots initiative, and you're able to work with the facilitator or someone within the organization to tailor the content better to whatever career field you're going to be in, or the career field that you're in right now. So we've done that with Eastern Health, we've done that with our police officers, we've done that with lawyers. So that is, I think, a benefit again to just having that content so close to you and controlling what it is that you put out. I think that the model that we have works really well, so we look forward to sharing how we got to this place with other friendship centers or other organizations who are looking to do this in their communities, because I think the biggest benefit of the way that we've developed this is that local lens. People feel a lot more connected to it, even within, at the city level here, having that local piece of history in there. I don't know. It's a great program. I think it would just start with the Indigenous community. It would be, this particular initiative, I think, came as a result of a need from the non-Indigenous community, but I think what we saw as we started to deliver this started to develop this training program was also a need from within our organization and the Indigenous community to share that part of who they were, and that wasn't an opportunity that this community has had really ever in Newfoundland and Labrador. So I think, that was really important. Was that it was a community initiative, the fact that it continues to be delivered by Indigenous people, the fact that we continue to update and make changes as the demographic changes in Newfoundland and Labrador as well. Being in an urban environment and being connected to the Friendship Center movement, also allowing for space for Indigenous people who come from other parts of the country and now call St. John's their home. Just kind of breaking the stigma and breaking those stereotypes down in that training, I think, is really important, and using examples that come from the community of racism and stereotyping that exist here in our city, and just putting that local context on a training. I feel like, I guess, a less obvious thing to include would be the partnerships with non-Indigenous stakeholder organizations. All of the obvious things, like having the community be involved and having that be driven by the communities, and engaging with the traditional territories and communities when you're doing that development, all that's very important. But also having on board some of the institutions that exist in your community to make sure that they understand the importance of this piece of education. Right now there's a big push for this indigenizing the academy, and we feel that in a lot of the institutions that we work with, but there seems to be a disconnect or a misunderstanding of what that truly means. So I think Indigenous education involves everyone, but driven by the Indigenous community. For us here, we encourage other organizations to get in touch with us to talk specifically about what we could do to support initiatives that they have. But again, I think you need to have that base of education before you know what it is you're reaching out for. So oftentimes, like within the correction system, for example, we'll have someone reach out and say that they're working with an Indigenous inmate. What resources do you have? Well, in what context? Are we looking for resources that support that person's mental health? Are we trying to make sure that they remain connected to culture while they're incarcerated? Or, are there issues understanding the written material because English isn't the first language? So sometimes that reaching out for resources comes from like a misguided way, I guess. And people are reaching out for the wrong reasons, but when they reach out for the right reasons, if we don't have resources here in-house, we're always eager to work with new partners and develop resources that could be beneficial for them in the future as well.